Namaskar from the Australian Consulate General in Kolkata. I'm Daniel and really pleased to join you for the SAI's Model United Nations Conference happening virtually in 2020. It's great to have 750 delegates from 11 countries participating. A special greeting to the participating Australian schools, Bishop Druitt College, Lindisfarne Anglican Grammar School and Radford College. I have great memories from my school and university days participating in UN student conferences, including the Australasian Model United Nations Conference. And in secondary school, my team won a United Nations Youth Association Security Council competition, and I'm proud to still have the certificates to show. These events were a very fun learning experience, giving an insight into how diplomacy works. You'll develop valuable teamwork and problem-solving skills and get the chance to negotiate, advocate and persuade, trying to find ways to work with others to amplify and add weight to your arguments. I can say that my involvement in these conferences led me to join my local United Nations Youth Association and later to pursue a public service career at the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, where I've had the opportunity to work on a range of international issues. Like India, Australia is a founding member of the United Nations, which holds a special place in our foreign policy and international engagement. Australia is committed to effective global cooperation, actively working in the UN system with countries large and small, particularly in our Indo-Pacific region, for peace, prosperity and security. After participating in this year's Model United Nations Conference, I hope some of you will be motivated to pursue your interests in international relations and development, and perhaps work in the future with UN agencies, NGOs, or in public service. Best wishes to all of you for the conference. Hello, we're with the Australian Consulate General in Kolkata. My name's Daniel, and I'll be asking a couple of the questions that have been raised by students at this year's UN Model Conference.
Hi, I'm Fiona and glad to be joining you today. I'll be answering some of those questions.
So the first question is from Trisha, and she's in the 11th grade at the SAI International School in Bhubaneswar. So she's asking, due to the ongoing COVID crisis, there are a number of businesses shutting down, shops closing and facing losses, and people becoming unemployed. So finding employment or money in these COVID times is becoming more difficult. So how can you help those affected?
Thanks, Tricia, for submitting your question, and it's a very timely one at the moment with the challenge the globe is facing with COVID. It's a question that highlights the impacts that many communities and people around the globe are facing, impacts on individuals, families and communities, and impacting their access to basic humanitarian needs like food, shelter and clothing. And it's in the access to these basic needs, they're impacted by unemployment and food insecurity. And I don't think there's any country in the world that's avoided this impact. But COVID has also highlighted the key role of UN agencies and its member states in providing sustainable support for business and jobs, providing humanitarian assistance to vulnerable communities to save lives, to support people displaced by COVID. So I think there is a role for the UN and its member states, and we are all part of that organisation. But you've asked the question, how can I help? I'd actually like to turn that around and ask the question of you. How can you help and what you can do? And those participating in this UN forum, we're all members of our community and our society, and we can and we should engage in those conversations with our leaders, with our governments and those representing us in the UN. It's up to you to hold your leaders accountable, and you have influence. And I'll encourage you to use your experience during this forum and the last few days and the next few days to build on your experience and your advocacy and your experience in engaging with others to build that consensus, to influence. It's your role to influence your leaders and your community. You might not be able to vote, but you could influence discussion within your family and they can vote for you. I hope this event's been a positive one and I wish you well in your studies.
Thanks very much, Fiona. The second question is from Serena, and she's in the 11th grade at the Singapore International School in Mumbai. And so she's asking, in this time of need, why do you think countries are barely collaborating with each other to conquer COVID-19?
Thanks for that question, Serena. It's an interesting one. As I said, COVID-19 is presenting some complex and interconnected challenges right across the globe, and it's impacting on stability, economic development, and health security. While some would agree with your assertion that there's a lack of collaboration, I think many countries actually are collaborating to address this global challenge. Many countries, like Australia, are using their aid and their development programs to assist countries to manage the negative impacts. Australia, for example, is pivoting our aid and development programs to better assist countries with access to vaccines, drug and testing kits and diagnostic tools. We're addressing the long-term impacts on stability and prosperity in communities around the globe, and providing humanitarian assistance to address the immediate needs of vulnerable populations. So I think many countries are actually working together in the UN and its specialised agencies on a range of issues. Unfortunately, the media always likes a soundbite and will focus on the negative and the sensationalism, including the tendency for nations to focus on their own backyard. But I think there is a more balanced conversation to have. And many of the countries are working through the UN, as we indicated earlier, through the WHO, the World Health Organization, through UNICEF to support access for children to health and education and nutrition. And they're working with some of the trade and development opportunities and organisations within the UN to ensure that this prosperity and economic growth is maintained. But your question really highlights the role and the value of the UN and working within the UN and working with member states, as you've been experiencing over the last few days, and how we can work together to have consensus and outcomes. It also highlights the role of your government and your role as an individual to influence your government and encourage that discussion and debate within your country. I'd encourage you to use your experience that you've had during this UN model event to engage, advocate and influence. And I hope the event's been a positive one, and good luck with your future studies.